look who read too many books again.
Funding for this channel is provided by viewers like you. Thank you.
What's up, punks? It's officially August, which means that we are due for a monthly reading wrap-up. In the month of July, I somehow managed to read 25 books despite catching the plague. It happened! A few of them were on the shorter side. We read some graphic novels, we read a children's book, we read some novellas, so to say, so it makes sense. But also, she does read excessively. She does spend more time in books than doing most other things. So we're just gonna talk about them. The good, the bad, the ugly, the usual. But first things first, I wanted to remind you that these summer snail t-shirts are available for pre-order for the next 3 weeks. I designed these shirts myself, inspired by the love that I have for my snails and also my recent autism diagnosis. I've learned all too recently that it is quite common for not men to receive their autism diagnosis quite later in life because there's not as much awareness, there's not enough understanding, etc. So I decided to donate 10% of the proceeds in selling these shirts to the Autism Women and Non-Binary Network. Support the channel, support a cool cause, pre-order the summer snail shirt if you feel so inclined. And last but not least, the 3 disclaimers I like to give before diving into my reading reviews. The first one being, it is my full-time job to read books and talk about them on the internet.com. So, while I wholeheartedly believe that it is of utmost importance to not compare yourself to anyone else but you, especially do not compare your reading habits to booktubers. Please. If you read 5 books this month, that's great. If you read 1 book this month, that's amazing. If you were too busy doing other things that you didn't read anything, that is fine. Only compare your life to your life. The second one is that we're going to have different feelings towards books. So if I loved a book that you hated or I hated a book that you loved, there's nothing personal about it. You just had different emotions towards ink on paper. And lastly, always check the content warnings before diving into any books. If you have any sensitivities, that's fine. Respect yourself. Without further ado, let's get into the 25 books that I read in the month of July. Starting with All Over Holland van Kikker and Pant by Arnold Lomer, otherwise known as the complete collection of Frog and Toad. It's the Dutch translation of one of my favorite children's stories ever, complete with every story involving my favorite 2 little amphibians. Are both frogs and toads amphibians? Now I have to Google it. They both have complex life cycles with time on land and time in water. The skin must stay moist to absorb oxygen and therefore lacks scales. Boom. Anyway, these are just such sweet stories that I was still effortlessly able to connect to into my adult years. They encapsulate friendship, they celebrate mundanity, which is right up my alley. I loved it just as much as I thought I would, maybe even a little bit more. I just had such a good time. It was just so nostalgic and it was just so nice and it was the best way to practice Dutch. If you didn't already know, hi, my name is Allie. I moved to Belgium when I was 21 to marry my now husband and I've been living here trying to figure out my life ever since. I'm now almost 28. I am now almost 28. Next, She Gets the Girl by Rachel Lippencourt and Alison Derrick. This is written by 2 women that are in love and married, and it is so sweet. This is about 2 girls who are polar opposites and they just start university. One is shy and has a crush on someone, and the other is a little more headstrong, and the other one decides to help the first one get with her crush. Get the girl. Hence the name. This one was light, it was fun, it was flirty, it was also gay, but it also dips its toes into class themes. Capitalism, just a little bit. How money alters our collegiate experience. So despite it being just fun and easy reading, it had some strong themes too. This one really felt like a cute, cheesy rom-com, and in a good way. It just made me feel good. I just really liked it. There was something about the way it was written that had me caring from the start to the finish. It was just cheesy in all the best ways, and it was fun. I had fun. Next! Under the Udala Trees by Chinelo Okparanta. This book is inspired by Nigerian folk tales, and our protagonist comes of age as her nation does, as a civil war breaks out in the young Republic of Nigeria. See, this is technically a sapphic read. It technically is, but it is more so such an educational and beautifully written historical fiction. If the romance genre isn't typically something you enjoy, I think if you do like historical fiction, this is the book for you. It's just such an informative character study. It's painful, it's powerful. It was so well done. I really, really liked this one. It hurt, but it was also just so good. Next! Someone said they thought I was 5'9". I'm 5'2", as you can see. I'm struggling. The next one is Spinning by Tilly Walden, and if you're new here in this house, we love Tilly Walden, and so this one was no exception. This is her graphic memoir, which is personally my favorite way to learn about somebody's story. I think it's just such a creative medium to share your life with somebody else. It follows Walden's experience coming to terms with her sexuality while dedicating herself to competitive figure skating. The art style is so impressive. I always just feel so comforted when I'm sharing a space with her drawings. I love her use of color. I just really appreciated how how simple and honest it was. My favorite Walden is still on a sunbeam, but if you ever spent your youth dedicating a lot of time to a particular activity, or maybe if you have any regrets and you wanted to live that life of dedicating a lot of your time to an activity, read this book, because when I was reading this one, it really made me want to join choir again. Your girl was in multiple choirs every year from like ages 11 to 18, and I want to go back. I didn't do a sport like this, but I felt understood. And also I didn't come to terms with my sexuality until later in life either, so I just liked this one. I just love Tilly Walden. Next, Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. Wait, as if this isn't such a nice addition already. Look! What? I couldn't decide which to put on my bookshelf because it's just so pretty. Like that. That's it. This story follows two girls, one in New York City and one in the Dominican Republic, and how both of their lives drastically change when losing somebody in a plane crash. This is another book that is technically on the sapphic list, but is definitely not a romance book under any circumstances. This book is more so about found family, finding yourself, and the strong connections between women. Something important to note that I somehow did not know is that this book is written in prose. Every single page is like a little poem. So it really makes for a speedy, effortless read. Well, effortless as in you can fly through the pages. It's not effortless as far as feelings are concerned. But if you're in a reading slump and maybe you just want to feel accomplished, this could be the book for you. This could be the book to get you out of that slump, because you really fly through it really fast. Something that I thought was done just so gorgeously was the cultural components, especially surrounding the Dominican Republic. I really felt like I was there, and just overall I liked this one. And the afterword at the end really added a lot of great context, and it's thanks to this one that I will definitely be reading more from this author. So, quite good. Oh, here we go! Next, The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School by Senora Rain. Now, if we do want to talk about favorites, here we are. You know, you see a book and you just think to yourself, there is no way the inside is as nice as the outside, and then you're proven wrong? This book. If you want the easy reading of a young adult fiction, but with themes that will punch you in the gut like a traumatic adult fiction, with characters that are so well written that you feel like you know them personally in real life, this is your book. This one follows a queer Mexican-American girl who is navigating a new Catholic school with her brother. It covers the complications of having a split family due to deportation, religious trauma, with both queer and mental health themes that are just so well done. I absolutely loved this one. I was so impressed with it. I was so emotionally moved by it. A lot of the times I do catch myself underestimating YA. I think that they'll just be light, easy, fun reading, and then sometimes, you know, this one, you know? Ooh, please read this. Next, Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies by Maddie Mortimer. This is a book that I just fell in love with at a bookshop. Admittedly, I was drawn to it by the cover. I love the colors, I love the style, I love that there's little cells on the inside, and I love that it was described as a coming of age at the end of a life story. And every time I opened it up and read a sentence, it was just so beautifully crafted. This was in April, so it might have been out for a week. I hadn't heard anything about it, but now it's on the Booker Prize long list, so it's gonna be winning some awards and stuff, and there's a lot of hype. I'm here to tamper your expectations just a little bit. Just a little bit. Was this book beautifully written? Yes, undeniably so. Did it need to be this long? Was I confused most of the time? Also, yes. But did I enjoy my time? Yeah. But this one really does seem like a it's not you, it's me kind of situation. This book in particular is just not the kind of writing style or storytelling that clicks with my brain, and that's fine. There were still a lot of underlines. She's got some dog ears. I'm still glad I read it, but at the end of the day, it took me over a month to finish it. And if you haven't already noticed, I read pretty fast. I just kind of dreaded picking it up because it was a lot of work, and it was just very confusing to me. I'm not that poetry, artsy, big brain kind of gal, and that's fine. I'm glad I tried. I'm glad I got what I could out of it. There were some moments. If you're a big brain, hot girl, smart girl, definitely give it a shot. If you're someone who struggles with things like classics or poetry, maybe skip this one. Next, Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. This was our Pocket Pages book club book for July. I know a lot of you loved this one, and I'm so happy about that. I think I loved it too, but I also didn't at all. It's so confusing. Okay, as some of you know, I read A Little Life, and I really liked it. Am I particularly personally happy with Hanya Yanagihara? Perhaps her intentions behind some of the books that she's written? No, but there was just something about A Little Life that I liked quite a lot, and I felt understood. But I get why everybody thinks that it's excessive and just too much to be recommending willy-nilly. I'm gonna do the same with Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. It might be controversial, but I think that this one was harder to get through than A Little Life. I don't know if this is because McDaniel wrote this based off of real experiences from her mother. I don't know if it was because it was mostly centered around women and the abuse that women felt, and so I felt closer to that. There was animal cruelty, that's the next level for me. There was a lot to it. I think the biggest thing, however, is that with A Little Life, I felt that there were a lot more happy moments and hopeful moments. There were friendships, there was joy. It felt more balanced. This one did not feel balanced to me at all. Under no circumstances am I gonna sit here and tell McDaniel or her mother Betty how to tell their story. No way, Jose. However, just personally, as a reader, ooh, this was hard. But also, that's kind of my fault because I I read it in one sitting. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just as someone who doesn't easily get phased, this was still a lot, even for me. So if you're someone who considers yourself more on the sensitive side, I would definitely urge you to skip this one. What is it about? A family. It's about a family. It's about Betty, who's technically Tiffany McDaniel's mom, and her growing up with her family, which doesn't give you much. I also went into this book not knowing much. We all did. I'm so sorry yet again. It was really beautifully written, and I loved her dad, and I loved Lint, and that was wonderful. But at the end of the day, I technically didn't have a good time with this one. Despite it being good, it is good. I just didn't feel good, which was good, but not good. Does that make sense? It was grueling and exhausting, and there's hardly any moments of reprieve, from the abuse to bullying at school, to racism, to animal cruelty, to sexual assault. It's a lot. That's all I can say. I've been thinking about my thoughts on this one for weeks, and I don't know how I feel fully. Overwhelmed and impressed. That's how I feel. So that's what we read in July. If you'd like to join us for August, we are reading In the Mountains Echoed by Khaled Hosseini. Khaled Hosseini is one of my favorites, if not my favorite author of all time. This is the only book left that I have not read from him, so I'm so happy that we're reading it together. The Pocket Pages Book Club is $1 a month. We read a book from the first 3 weeks of every month and discuss in a temporary Discord server in the last week of every month, so you don't have to be available for any live streams or anything like that. Time zones cannot stop us from discussing fine literature and also our pain. Next, The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. I know the dust jacket is missing. It bothers me too. I'm gonna confess from the get-go. I read 3 Riley Sagers this month. I wanted to spread them out and I couldn't, which just goes to show how much I enjoy reading Riley Sager's books. Even when they're not that great, they get me every time. I'm always saying even when I don't like a Riley Sager book, I like a Riley Sager book. The Last Time I Lied is about a woman who returns to a childhood summer camp years after 2 of her cabin mates went missing. I really like the atmosphere of this one. I like that we were in a summer camp during summertime, during Summerween. This one wasn't as thrilling nor as gripping as I originally hoped it would be. It might be my least favorite Riley Sager. Super controversial, I know, we'll get into it. This one was just most repetitive to me out of all the Sagers that I read so far. I only have one left, which is Final Girls. All the rest I have consumed. And this is the one where I cared the least about what happened. And what made it worthwhile was honestly the last 30 to 10 pages. Because that twist was fun, that's for sure. But the rest of it was kinda just a little bit But I'm still glad I read it because I was still entertained. And immediately after finishing it, I immediately ran to my computer and ordered the last 3 books that I haven't read from him yet. So I'm guilty. I like Riley Sager. I get why everyone doesn't, but I have fun every time, and I just like to have fun, so I'm gonna keep having fun. Okay, next. Ooh, it's my least favorite read of the month. Ooh. And that is I Kissed Cheryl Wheeler by Casey McKiston. I was not expecting this. I loved One Last Stop. I had such a great fun time with it. I enjoyed the romance. I enjoyed the friends. I enjoyed the steamy scenes. There was absolutely nothing I enjoyed about this one. This is a sapphic YA about a girl named Shara who's so pretty and so popular and so rich, and she makes herself go missing and leaves all these manipulative letters behind to get all these people who are panting after like a puppy dog for no reason. We don't know why, because she's pretty, whatever. Be nice. This is your job. Be professional. I had a hard time nailing down exactly what I didn't like about this book so much. I think the biggest thing is that we were thrown right into the meat and potatoes of the story before understanding or knowing anybody, and so they cared about everything that was happening, but I didn't even care about them to then care about what they cared about, and I just didn't understand why all of these characters, who are also quite flat, cared so much about the flattest character in the book, enough to dedicate most of their time and energy into putting together these schemed clues that this popular enchantress put together. For why? I feel bad because I was really excited to read this one. This was the buddy read for the summer splash. I was just bored from start to finish with this one. I was rolling my eyes at every letter that Cheryl left behind, consistently asking, why do we care? Why should I care? I don't know. At the end, there was a little blurb that Casey wrote about how queer kids should have their own happy queer stories, but to me, this was not that. And there were just so many other books in the stack that I even read this month alone that put me in that happy gay place, and I feel bad, but I'm sorry. Next, Pen Pal by Dathan Auerbach. The blurb of this one leaves you with almost nothing. What I will say is that this is technically realistic horror. Oh my gosh. This one, I don't understand what anyone's qualms are with it. I don't. Riley Sager, I get it. This one, I was scared. I'm a baby, but I was a scared baby. It creeped me the heck out. I read it in one sitting without even trying. The boxes chapter? That's all I'll say. I ordered this one for my mom for her birthday because she likes scary things. Give it a read if you want to. I was scared. Next, Taproot by Keezy Young, a story about a gardener and a ghost. This is such a cute and short graphic novel, which is exactly what it says it is, a gardener falling in love with a ghost. This art style is exactly what I'm looking for in my graphic novels. I'm not here for grime, I'm not here for action, I'm here for earth tones. I'm here for nature. I'm here for soft, squishy characters and their soft, squishy feelings. This is I eat it up. The pacing was definitely a little funky. The story could have used some tightening, but also on the same hand, it felt like a pilot episode for a new Cartoon Network show. So I'm really hoping that there are more issues because, you know, this one came in with the bait. It hooked me in. I have a lot of questions. Sure, they could have been hashed out in this one. They could have made it longer, but also give me more issues. I will read them. You have my interest. So despite the characters maybe not having the time to necessarily be fleshed out, perhaps I didn't have the ability to connect with the story and who's in the story as much as I would like, the vibes were immaculate and I had a nice time. So if there is a second one, Keezy, may I call you Keys, I will be pre-ordering it. The next book is A Psalm for the Wild Bill by Becky Chambers. This is a sci-fi-esque cozy fantasy and it takes place in a distant future where all the AI/robot people separate themselves from the human beings and live in the forest. Relatable, I would do the same if I were them. Our protagonist is a monk and they are simply just trying to find their place in the world. In the beginning of the story, they make some life changes, they try to set up some roots for themselves, and then they meet a robot who decided to return to the humans to ask them one question: what is it that humans need? This one was really good. There were a lot of moments that were just so profound and heartwarming and pure. The second the monk and the robot met each other, it was 5 stars. The beginning took a little bit, it drudged on just for a little, but it set the scene, and then once we were in the scene, I had a great time. I was banking on this one being a new favorite. I was, but it's up there, okay? It's up there. It's really good. Had we have spent the majority of the book with the monk and the robot, it would probably be on my favorite shelf, let's be honest. That being said, my only complaint is that I wanted more from these two characters together. So you know I already ordered the second one. It literally just came out. I cannot wait to read it because I loved this one. And I am completely convinced that I will also love the second one. So keep them coming, Becky Chambers. Next, Sea Prayer by Khaled Hosseini. This is technically a children's book, so I threw it in the mix when I was doing my 24-hour readathon just to give my brain a little bit of a break. This book beautifully illustrates how painful and challenging it is to leave your home to start a new life for yourself. The watercolor illustrations are divine. It is so gorgeously yet so simply written. And the back is what wraps it all up in saying that this book was inspired by Alan Kurdi, a 3-year-old Syrian refugee who drowned in the Mediterranean Sea trying to reach safety in Europe in September 2015. This book is dedicated to the thousands of refugees who have perished at sea fleeing war and persecution. Just such a painful yet powerful book. I'm completely convinced that Hosseini will never flop. I hope he never stops writing. Please never stop writing. Ow. But then I said enough breaks, it's time to learn. And I read Are Prisons Obsolete by Angela White Davis. This is a very short, introductory, yet comprehensive and compact nonfiction that breaks down the prison industrial complex that exists in the United States today and urges us for the abolition of said system. This one is so well written and so accessible in my opinion. When it comes to nonfictions, one of my top concerns is accessibility. I personally love nonfiction, but I know that a lot of people don't, and I want to encourage people to dip their toes into nonfiction. So if you're looking for something that won't overwhelm you and you're interested in this kind of social justice topic, highly recommend reading this one. It's so low pressure, it's so informative. It examines the flaws in our current structure today, and I feel as though it proves that punishment is not the form of rehabilitation that we think it is. And I feel like Davis is aware, as in she understands that we, as she says it, takes prisons for granted, meaning we can't conceive a world that doesn't have prisons because it's all we've known for so long. And yet she still pushes us to think outside of the box. And I have to agree with Davis there. Isolated violent punishment is not really a solution to crime. Do I have the solution as a girl who makes videos on the internet.com? Certainly not. But I can still have feelings towards what exists now. And I hope you form your own opinions on what exists now, and I hope you pick this one up. I will definitely be reading more from Davis. Give it a scoop. Next, Are You Listening by Tilly Walden. Second Tilly Walden of the month, everybody. She cannot be stopped. This follows two people who bump into each other and decide to road trip together for a little while, and so it's a lot of chatting in the car. It's very simple, it's very sweet. They find a cat, which honestly ties the whole thing together. The cat made this story. It's ambiguous, it's a little gay. There's also a sprinkle of magical realism, which I totally was not expecting. Much like a lot of people, I did close this one wishing that I had a little bit more from the characters, but then upon thinking about it further, some more development would have been fine. But also the ambiguity is what made this what it was, you know? I enjoyed being a fly on the wall in a blip of these two people's lives, learning about these characters in this particular moment, and it was a lot more emotionally moving than I anticipated, and it had me giggling at some points, so I liked this one a lot. Next, Jane Against the World, Roe v. Wade and the Fight for Reproductive Rights by Karen Blumenthal. This is a historical nonfiction that, through a journalistic approach, breaks down every event that took place in order to lead the United States in passing Roe v. Wade. Such a complete look on such a landmark of a case. I think this one is so important. I cannot thank Alana or Blackstacks enough on Instagram for recommending this book to us, because considering the kairos of the situation now, as Roe v. Wade was recently overturned by the Supreme Court, I think it is even of utmost importance now to learn more about why we had such a decision in the first place and how dangerous it is to overturn it. There was still a lot that I was quite clueless to, and this broke it all down. I am going to be honest though, this is not the most accessible read, I don't think. It's not written too confusing, especially in the beginning when each chapter, each segment is about about one person, one monumental historical happening. When we do get into the court aspect of things, it does get a little bit harder to follow. But I still hope that that doesn't discourage you from picking it up, because I think that this is just such an important read. I can't say it enough. My advice for tackling a book, especially a nonfiction that you may not feel confident in, is to just pick it up, learn what you can, and don't pressure yourself. Because at the end of the day, if you pick up and you read something, even if you don't know everything, especially if you're reading it for fun, you're not being quizzed on it. Just learn what you can. It's just crucial that we stay informed, and this book is such a wonderful place to start. Next, Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. So this is a classic sci-fi fiction that follows a man with a developmental disorder named Charlie who enters a science experiment alongside a mouse named Algernon. Together they undergo treatments and surgeries in order to drastically and artificially raise both of their IQs and to then be observed. What unfolds is a poignant portrayal on how disabled people are treated in the world around them, as well as an essential reminder that intellectual intelligence does not equate emotional intelligence, not even a little bit. So there are some very strong themes in this book, and there are some moments that really do pack a punch. However, my brain is just not built for classics. It's just not. This did not flow even remotely for me. This is just not the kind of reading experience that I look for or enjoy. It dragged for me. A lot of the time I was quite bored, and I felt that the story took us in some strange directions and that the pacing was a little bit disastrous. My final overall takeaway is that this book needs more mouse. Where's the mouse? How dare you name a book after the mouse? Put the mouse on the cover and he's barely in here. I thought this book was gonna make me cry, but there was like no mouse in this book. Give me more mouse. Next, I read Thaktumi, an anthology of Arctic horror stories. There's no one author to this because it is a collection of Inuktitut short stories. Short horror stories, nonetheless. I got this book recommended to me after asking for people's favorite horror stories that include indigenous folklore but is actually written by indigenous people. So thank you so much for putting this one on my radar, and if you have any more, go ahead and let me know. Like any collection of short stories, of course, some of them really hit and some of them lost me a little bit. There are so many different voices, there are so many different characters, so many different ways of telling stories, and I'm glad I experienced them all. However, there was one that definitely stood out to me. The story with the door. I would read an entire full-length book on that one. My favorite feature of this book was the fact that Inuktitut language is incorporated throughout the stories, and there's a glossary in the back to help you with pronunciation and definitions, and that was just so nice to do, in my opinion. I liked that a lot. So thank you again to everyone who recommended this one to me. I love y'all's recommendations. I read all the comments, love talking about books. This is the place. This is my place. Next, I read Survive the Night by Riley Sager. The second Riley Sager of the month, y'all. It had to happen. Once again, to nobody's surprise, I read it in one sitting. And I still had fun with it. I did. This is like everyone's least favorite Sager book, but I did not think that it was the worst. I still think The Last Time I Lied was the worst. This one follows a girl in college whose roommate was recently murdered, and so she wants to go back home and escape the collegiate world for a while, if not forever. But the only way to get home is to share a ride with someone, and so against everyone's recommendations, she gets into a car with a stranger, and the more they drive, the more she becomes convinced that the man that she is sharing a car with is the campus killer. Ooh. If you like unreliable narrators, this book is that. If you like stories that take place in a small confined space like the movie Phone Booth or Panic Room, this book is that. Do I understand why everyone thought this wasn't that great of a book? Sure. Do I think it deserves as many 1 stars as it has? No. It was at least 3. It was fine to me. Were the twists mind-blowing? No. Was the story revolutionary? Also no. But do I pick up a Riley Sager book for either of those things? No. I picked it up to have fun and to have an effortless reading experience, and it did that. So, part 2, it was fine. Next! All My Rage by Saba Tahir. This is a YA contemporary that quite a few people in my corner of the internet were screaming to the high heavens about, and I am so glad that they did. This one follows a small community in modern day California and the one woman that connects them all in the past in Pakistan. This one is so rich in culture. It has strong character connections, it has deep themes, and a whole lot of very understandable moral ambiguity. The way this one was written, I don't know how she did it, but it was done so well. I cared so much. It's almost 400 pages and it did not feel like that whatsoever. I flew through it without even trying. This is a potent story once again. Speedy reading like a YA but with deep-rooted themes like an adult book. Truly the best of both worlds. One of the top books that I read this month. Please pick it up, even if you're not a big YA person. The next book I have to get from my favorite shelf, and that is Miss Ice Sandwich by Miko Kawakami. You're looking at the newest edition of the favorite shelf, but also baby's first Miko Kawakami, and so I am so excited to read more by this author. I had such a wonderful time here. It is under 100 pages, so it is so short, it is so low pressure. What do you have to lose? Please read this. This is about a boy who becomes completely entranced by the woman who makes sandwiches at his local supermarket. And whether intentionally or not, he is very neurodivergent coded, and I just thought it was done very well. I felt very represented. I just really like being in the heads of characters who think similarly to the way that I think. It makes makes me feel less alone. It's just so comforting to me. I loved the friendships that blossomed in this one. I was not expecting that. It's simple, it's mundane, it's innocent, it is so cute. After finishing it, I realized that I had literally dog-eared almost every single page within this book, so needless to say, it lives on the favorite shelf now. This is just so good to me. Next, Hide by Kirsten White. Okay, so with all these Riley Sagers, you might be thinking, this girl's easy to please. She wouldn't know a good thriller if it hit her in the face, which is not legally wrong, I don't think, but here's one that I didn't really like. This book follows 14 contestants in an abandoned amusement park partaking in a game that is diabolically simple. Hide, don't get caught, last man standing wins, an amount of money that will change everything, quote unquote. Just a few notes. What a strong chance to critique capitalism. I've seen this story compared to Squid Game, but wow, fell so flat, so sad. What a fun and exciting setting. We could have had some cool murders on a roller coaster track, or maybe some wild, scary chases on a carousel or something. So flat, so sad. Also, enough money to change everything. First thing that comes to my mind, I don't know, maybe $1 million. It was $50K. And one of the characters even said, this won't even scratch my student debt. There was just a lot that was not realistic or well done in this book, from head to toe. Anything, point to it, you name it. Characters, flat. Setting, underutilized. Themes, twist. I agree with everyone that this should have been marked as YA. It very much felt like a YA. Any chance that we could have got some great adult horror in this cool setting was just a fade to black. We faded to black so much. And I just wish this was marked appropriately, because if I knew that it was a YA, I wouldn't have picked it up. I cannot and will not recommend this one. I thought it was quite bad. Next, The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak. The synopsis of this one states that two friends who aren't allowed to be friends meet in secret under a fig tree. They're not allowed to be together because one is Greek, one is Turkish, one is Muslim, one is Christian. And so I personally was expecting a magical story about two children growing up together in this magical space. Maybe that was just my artificial assumptions that I placed on the book. Did anyone say that this was about magical children in a magical space? No. Is it actually just a historical fiction that kind of has too many points of view? Yes. Was it still good though? Also, yes. Calm down. Someone said that they almost fought me because I kind of didn't connect with this one at first. Give me time to speak. Was it a weak magical realism story? Yes. But was it a strong historical fiction? Yes. Balance your expectations is what I'm saying. The story itself needs some help in my opinion. It was pretty disjointed. We're bouncing from the 1970s in Cyprus to the 2010s in London to just a tree sharing its feelings sometimes. But despite the story not being as spot on as I hoped, the imagery and the writing style was fantastic. Those elements were so impressive that I was able to overlook some pacing or plot problems that I may have had, and I was just able to kind of kick back, relax, and enjoy the landscape. So it was still pretty good. I liked it. And then the final book that I read in the month of July was The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. Third and final Sager of the month, folks. I only have one left to read, like I said, and it's Final Girls. So I would love to know your Riley Sager rankings, because I know that everyone seems to be kind of on a similar page, and I'd love to know if other people dislike the same ones that I didn't really like. So this one takes place in a wealthy summer lake cabin setting. Our protagonist recently lost her husband to drowning in the lake, and she is drowning a lot of her sorrows with alcohol while passing the time in spying on her neighbors through her binoculars. Very similar to Woman in the Window energy, that's for sure. I was hooked yet again. I read it in under 24 hours yet again. I didn't really mind that this one went slower than the other ones. I thought it was a fresh change of pace, and once again I absolutely loved the summer spooky setting. So yeah, I did enjoy that we fleshed out the characters a bit more. I cared from start to finish. I loved putting the pieces together, and with this one he actually got me with the twist. He really did. As cheesy as it was sometimes, he got me. I read this one with a friend, and that just made it all the more fun because we had so much to talk about and so many predictions. It's fun. Live a little. Sometimes I wish I was a cool avant-garde mystery horror thriller girly, but I'm just not. I'm basic and I don't care. I'm having fun. Leave me alone. So that's it. Those are the 25 books that I read in the month of July. What? Oh my god. Ooh, dangerous. Let's sit down. This was definitely one of the most fun months of reading I've had because we had the summer Ween readathon, we had the summer Splash readathon, and so I just plowed through my TBR. I really only read things that I wanted to read. I bounced from my non-fictions to my graphic novels to my spookies to my cutes. I went everywhere. It was delightful. I'm going to go spend an hour finding the homes of all these books on my shelf. One more ginormous, ever-ending, forever living, breathing, screeching thank you to everyone on my Patreon who supports support this channel each and every day. It's because of you that I am able to make my special interest my job. I'm so thankful for all of you. If you would like to join the Patreon, it is linked down below. Join the book club, get some printable bookmarks, matching wallpapers, whatever you feel like doing. It's there for you. Join us. And a big reminder that this summer snail t-shirts are only available for the next 3 weeks. If you would like to support this channel in that way, get something for yourself and support a really wonderful charity, then that will also be linked down below. Just thank you so much for being here. I'm having so much fun. I hope you're having so much fun too. And as always, thank you for clicking, thank you for caring, and thank you for being nice. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!